For 6 centuries, the Order of the Garter has stood as an unyielding symbol of honor within the British royal family. But then, an old letter from Queen Elizabeth, a bold decision from the Duke of Kent, changed everything. Princess Catherine, caught between admiring gazes and skeptical whispers, is chosen to carry forward this legacy. Yet in the royal family, honor always comes with trials. As hidden forces rise, can a modern woman like her truly have the strength to stand firm and protect not only tradition but herself? Windsor in June 2025 wears a serene beauty under the early summer sun. The cobblestone paths leading to the ancient castle glimmer in the morning mist, as if time has stood still for centuries. But behind the moss-covered stone walls, the air simmers with quiet unrest. Garter Day, the most solemn ceremony of the Order of the Garter, draws near, and the British royal family, though outwardly majestic, is steeped in undercurrents no one dares voice aloud. Catherine, Princess of Wales, walks down the long corridor of Clarence House, her high heels clicking rhythmically on the polished wooden floor. Her pale blue dress clings to her slender frame, but her eyes betray a pensive mood. She has just finished a meeting with her advisors discussing her speech for Garter Day. The ornate words, the ancient rituals, they're all familiar. Yet today, an invisible pressure weighs heavily on her shoulders. She looks tired, doesn't she? A soft voice drifts from behind a red velvet curtain. Catherine pauses, tilting her head slightly. The voice, though faint, cuts like a blade. She doesn't turn around, but her hands clasped in front of her tighten briefly. Whispers are never accidental in the royal family. They are the first stones of an avalanche. She continues walking, but her mind is no longer in the corridor. In recent days, rumors have spread like wind through the tea rooms of the aristocracy. The Duke of Kent, head of the Order of the Garter, is preparing to announce something momentous. No one knows exactly what, but Catherine's name keeps surfacing in hushed conversations. A silent ascension, they call it, with tones of both curiosity and unease. Catherine, the woman once adored by the public for her grace and dedication, has unwittingly become the focus of scrutinizing eyes. In a small drawing room at Clarence House, the Duke of Kent sits pensively by the window. In his 80s, he still carries the demeanor of a bygone gentleman, a tailored suit, silver hair neatly combed and eyes sharp enough to pierce through secrets. Before him sits a cold cup of tea beside a folded sheet of paper, bearing the royal seal. He knows his impending decision will not only shake the ancient rituals of the Order of the Garter, but also ignite long-simmering tensions within the royal family. "Your Grace, have you considered this carefully?" A deep voice rises from the corner of the room. It's Sir Edward, the Duke's longtime advisor, a man who prides himself on preserving unchanging tradition. He stands tall, hands clasped behind his back, but his voice betrays worry. The traditionalists won't accept it easily. They see her as too modern. The Duke of Kent doesn't respond immediately. His gaze drifts to the garden outside, where roses bloom vibrantly. Modern, he repeats, his voice low and deliberate, as if tasting the word. Is that not what the Queen once desired? Edward, a royal family that adapts to survive. Sir Edward stiffens. He knows the Duke is not easily swayed, but Catherine's name, though beloved by the public, remains a gamble. A young woman, however intelligent and poised, can she withstand the political storms of the royal family? And more crucially, can she unite those accustomed to centuries of constancy? Morning sunlight filters through the stained glass windows of Kensington Palace, casting shimmering patterns on an ancient Persian rug. Catherine sits at her desk, carefully opening a newly arrived envelope. The red wax seal embossed with the Duke of Kent's emblem makes her pause for a moment. In the quiet room, only the steady tick of a pendulum clock breaks the silence, as if counting down to something inevitable. Inside the envelope is a handwritten note, its elegant yet sharp script radiating the authority of its author. "Dear Princess, I request your presence at the Green Study, Kensington Palace at 3 p.m. today. An important matter requires discussion. Sincerely, Edward, Duke of Kent." No explanation, no hint, just concise words heavy with purpose, as if each had been chosen with care. Catherine sets the letter down, unease stirring within her. She's heard the whispers at Clarence House, felt the probing glances at recent meetings. The Duke of Kent, a man of calm reserve and guarded demeanor, rarely requests private audiences like this. What could compel him to act so directly, and why her? She rises and steps to the window, gazing at the garden. Roses bloom brilliantly under the sun, but her mind is tangled in restless thoughts. Since joining the royal family, she's grown accustomed to pressure the public's watchful eyes, sensationalist headlines, the unspoken expectations of centuries-old tradition. But this time, something feels different. A vague premonition, as if she stands at a crossroads with no map. At 3 o'clock, the green study at Kensington Palace is steeped in a solemn hush. Oak bookshelves stretch to the ceiling laden with leather-bound tomes that seem to whisper the monarchy's history. The Duke of Kent is already there, seated in a green velvet armchair, his thin hands resting lightly on the arms. As Catherine enters, he nods slightly, his gaze keen but not unkind. "Princess, thank you for coming," he says, his voice low and measured. "Please sit." Catherine takes the chair opposite him, striving to maintain her composure. Her cream silk dress rustles faintly, breaking the silence. She meets the Duke's eyes, waiting. But inside, she feels her heartbeat quicken. The Duke wastes no time. He leans forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "Catherine, I've thought long and hard about the future of the Order of the Garter, and I believe it's time to pass on its leadership." His words land like a stone in still water. Catherine blinks, grappling with their meaning. "Pass on," she echoes, her voice trembling slightly. "You mean?" "To you," the Duke replies without hesitation. "I want you to become the head of the Order of the Garter, carrying forward the responsibility I've held for decades." Silence. A moment that stretches into eternity. Catherine feels a rush of blood to her ears, her mind reeling. The Order of the Garter. A symbol of honor and tradition, is one of the royal family's oldest legacies. Leading it is not just an honor, but a burden, a role demanding a delicate balance of authority and finesse. And now it's laid before her, an unheralded challenge. "Your Grace," she finally says, her voice calm, but tinged with anxiety. "I'm deeply honored, but why me? There are others more seasoned, more familiar with the rituals. I fear I lack the experience." The Duke smiles, a rare and meaningful gesture. Experience, Catherine, isn't always what matters most. Queen Elizabeth II once told me, "The royal family needs those with steadfast hearts and far-reaching vision." You have both. The mention of the Queen stops Catherine short. Memories of her, the woman who guided the royal family through countless storms, shine like a beacon in her mind. Yet even so, a thread of fear weaves through her. "But sir," she says, her voice softer, "I've heard the whispers. The traditionalists? They don't support change. If I take this role, can I unite them, or will I only make things worse?" The Duke tilts his head, his gaze deepening, as if seeing through her. "The royal family has never been a place of peace, Catherine. Even in the Queen's days, we faced unrest, generational disputes, media pressure, fractures after losses. But it's in moments like these that we need those who dare to step forward." He pauses, then continues, his voice lower. "After the Queen's passing, the royal family lost a pillar. Charles is trying, but he can't do it all. William, your husband, is the future, but you are the bridge. The public loves you, Catherine. They see in you the sincerity the royal family needs to endure in this age." Catherine lowers her eyes, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The Duke's words are like needles, both uplifting and piercing. She knows he's right about the public, but she also knows the cost of the spotlight. Every step she takes is scrutinized, every decision ripe for distortion. If she accepts this role, she'll face not only the traditionalists, but her own fears. "Sir," she says, her voice steadier, "if I agree, I need to know you'll stand by me. Not just in public, but in the private meetings where whispers turn to daggers." The Duke nods, a glint of resolve in his eyes. "You have my word, Catherine. But know this, the path won't be easy. You'll need more than courage. You'll need wisdom." As Catherine leaves the green study, dusk settles over Kensington Palace, bathing its stone walls in golden hues. But within her, a storm brews. The Duke of Kent's letter was not just an invitation. It was a doorway into the heart of royal politics. And she, whether she wished it or not, has crossed the threshold. The night before Garter Day, Windsor Castle is cloaked in an eerie stillness. June breezes sweep through the stone corridors, carrying an unusual chill, as if the ancient walls themselves murmur of things to come. Moonlight spills across the courtyard, illuminating the Order of the Garter's banners hanging high. But inside St. George's Chapel, the shadows feel heavier than ever. Catherine stands alone in her bedroom at Clarence's house, arms wrapped around herself as if to ward off a nameless cold. The pearl silk dress chosen for tomorrow's ceremony hangs silently on its rack, glinting under the chandelier's light. But now it feels less like a symbol of honor and more like armor she must don for the storm ahead. "Kate, you okay?" William's warm, low voice comes from the doorway. He steps inside, still in his suit from an evening meeting, his eyes betraying concern. He's noticed the change in her since her return from Kensington Palace, despite her efforts to hide it behind her familiar smile. Catherine turns, offering a faint smile. "I'm fine, just a bit nervous. Garter Day is always like that, you know." William doesn't answer right away. He crosses the room, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Don't hide from me, Kate. I know something's wrong. It's the Duke of Kent, isn't it? You met with him yesterday." She hesitates, her gaze drifting away. William has always been her rock, but this time she doesn't want to pull him into her personal whirlwind. Yet the patience in his eyes breaks her silence. She takes a deep breath and recounts everything: the letter, the meeting, the Duke's unexpected proposal. When she mentions leading the Order of the Garter, William freezes, his hand tightening on her shoulder. "He wants you to do what he asks," his voice low, but taut with tension. "Lead the Order of the Garter." Kate, do you realize what that means? It's not just ceremonies, it's power politics. The traditionalists won't stand for it. "I know," Catherine replies, her voice quiet but resolute. "But the Duke said it's what the Queen wanted. He believes I can do it." William turns away, rubbing his forehead, as if suppressing frustration. "The Queen," he repeats, his tone bitter. "People always use her name to justify crazy decisions. Kate, I don't doubt your ability, but I'm worried for you. They'll tear you apart, the press, the traditionalists, even some in our family." His words cut like a knife, not because they're harsh, but because they're true. Catherine lowers her head, her hands clasped to hide their trembling. She's seen the probing glances, heard the whispers, and now at this crossroads, she feels smaller than ever. "Do you think I should say no?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. William turns back, his eyes softening. He takes her hands, pulling her into his arms. "I just want you to think it through, Kate. If you take this on, you won't just be fighting the traditionalists. You'll be facing yourself, your doubts, your fears. I know you're strong, but I don't want you to go through this alone." Catherine rests her head against his chest, closing her eyes. In that moment, she wishes she could return to the early days, when life was simpler, when she was just an ordinary girl stepping into a fairy tale. But the fairy tale faded long ago, leaving a reality full of thorns. Meanwhile, in a secluded room at Windsor Castle, a small group of veteran Garter knights meets under the dim glow of candles. No paper, no minutes, just low voices and piercing gazes. Sir Reginald, a tall, lean man with silver hair, and a voice cold as steel, rises, his hands braced on the oak table. "We cannot let this happen," he declares, his tone resolute. "The Duke of Kent has gone too far. Catherine is a symbol of modernization, and modernization will destroy what we've protected for centuries. But the public adores her," another voice interjects, belonging to Lady Margaret, the only woman in the room. "If we oppose her openly, we'll be seen as outdated. The media will side with her." Sir Reginald smiles, but it's a smile devoid of warmth. "Who said we'd oppose her openly?" "There are other ways, Margaret," whispers, doubts, anonymous articles. "She may be strong, but she's human, and humans are fragile." The room falls silent, the air thick as before a storm. They know if the Duke of Kent announces his decision tomorrow, a covert war will begin, not with swords, but with words and schemes. On Garter Day 2025, Windsor Castle glows under June's radiant sun. The Order of the Garter's banners flutter atop stone towers, and trumpet blasts echo from the courtyard, signaling the start of the grand procession. Crowds line the streets, eagerly awaiting the deep blue velvet robes and white-plumed hats, symbols of honor and tradition. But inside St. George's Chapel, the atmosphere is stifling, as if a tempest looms. Catherine enters the chapel, her pearl silk dress hugging her frame, a small feathered hat trembling with each step. The royal insignia on her chest glints, but her eyes are heavy. She feels hundreds of gazes upon her, not just from knights and royals, but from camera lenses hidden behind stained glass windows. Each step feels like a dance on a knife's edge. and she knows today is more than a ceremony. William walks beside her, tall and imposing in the Order's dark blue ceremonial garb. He leans in, whispering, "You okay, Kate?" His voice is soft but steady, a lifeline in the storm. She smiles a practiced, flawless smile and nods. But inside, she's counting down to the moment the Duke of Kent will rise. The ceremony unfolds with precision prayers, hymns, and an opening speech by King Charles, who emphasizes the unchanging tradition of the Order. But when the Duke of Kent is called to the podium, an odd silence blankets the chapel. The rustle of robes ceases, and all eyes turn to him. The Duke stands tall, his gaze sweeping the crowd before settling on Catherine. He clears his throat, his voice resonant and sharp as a blade. Today we honor not only tradition, but also look to the future. For over 6 centuries, the Order of the Garter has stood for honor and duty. But to endure it, must adapt. For this reason, I have decided to pass my leadership role to the Princess of Wales, Catherine. A murmur ripples through the chapel like waves crashing against rocks. Catherine's heart clenches. Though she braced herself, though she rehearsed this moment 100 times, she's unprepared for its weight. She holds her posture, hands clasped tightly in her lap, but her eyes meet Sir Reginald's by chance. He doesn't murmur like the others. He simply stares, his gaze icy, and she knows he's not surprised. He knew. Outside, the crowd watching on large screens erupts in applause and cheers. The public loves Catherine, and to them, this is a triumph of progress. But inside the chapel, the mood splits sharply. Some knights nod in approval, their eyes alight with support. Others, especially the veterans, sit motionless, their faces like stone. The Duke raises a hand, signaling for silence. I ask the princess to come forward and say a few words. Catherine rises, the world slowing around her, each step on the stone aisle ringing like a bell. She stands at the podium facing the crowd, supporters, skeptics, and those waiting for her to falter. She takes a deep breath, her voice clear and resolute, though her heart trembles. I am deeply honored to be entrusted by the Duke of Kent with this role. The Order of the Garter is not just a tradition, it is a promise, a commitment to honor duty in the future. I don't promise perfection, but I promise to work with all my heart to preserve this legacy and bring it to a new generation. Her words are brief but carefully chosen. The crowd outside claps again, but in the chapel, only scattered applause follows. Catherine looks directly at Sir Reginald, and this time she doesn't look away. If this is a war, she won't let them see her fear. As the ceremony ends and the procession leaves the chapel, St. George's bells ring, mingling with the crowd's clamor. But to Catherine, the sound isn't victory, it's a warning. She steps into the light, a smile on her lips, but in her heart she knows this moment isn't the peak, but the start of a treacherous path. Garter Day has passed, but its echoes swirl like a contrary wind through Windsor Castle's stone corridors. June's sunlight remains brilliant, but for Catherine, Princess of Wales, the world has taken on a darker hue. She sits in her Kensington Palace office, facing a stack of newspapers and an iPad displaying a slew of online headlines. Catherine, the new queen of the Garter royal decision, divides traditionalists, furious who really controls Windsor. Each headline is an arrow, and though Catherine is used to media scrutiny, these sting sharper than ever. On X, posts spread like wildfire. One account with millions of followers writes, Catherine is the fresh air the royal family needs. Chamber Garter Day, 2025. But beneath it, skeptical comments abound. She's been handed too much. Who's pulling the strings? The Order of the Garter isn't a game for newcomers. Catherine scrolls through, trying not to let the words wound her, but she can't deny they hurt. She closes the iPad stands and walks to the window. The Kensington Gardens stretch out tranquil with blooming roses and chirping birds. But the peace is superficial. Inside, she feels like a gladiator in an arena, watched by invisible eyes. The Duke of Kent's decision has thrust her into the eye of the storm, and now she must find a way to survive. Kate Williams' voice comes from the doorway. He steps in, still in a casual white shirt, but his eyes betray tension. I just spoke with Dad. He's worried about the traditionalist reaction. They're rallying veteran knights to quietly oppose you. Catherine turns, her hands clasped tightly. Quiet opposition, she repeats, her tone bitter. They won't dare do it openly, but they'll do everything to make me fail, won't they? William steps closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. Not everyone, Kate. Dad supports you, and so do I. But we need to move fast. If you want to hold this role, you have to prove you're worthy not just to the public, but to those in the chapel yesterday. Catherine calls her advisory team a group of young, dynamic individuals who share her vision. In a small meeting room, she lays out a plan, small but symbolic reforms for the Order of the Garter, an open exhibition on the Order's history for the public, an educational program for students linking tradition to the younger generation, and an online Q&A session where she'll address questions about her new role. We need to show the public that the Order of the Garter isn't just a relic of the past. She says, her gaze steady. It's part of the future, and I want them to feel they belong to it. Her advisors nod, but one Anna speaks up softly. Ma'am, these ideas are wonderful, but the traditionalists won't like them. They'll say we're cheapening tradition. Catherine smiles, a blend of warmth and steel. They'll always find something to criticize, Anna. But if we don't change, we'll fade away. I'd rather face their criticism than watch this legacy die quietly. The plan moves forward swiftly. Days later, an official announcement on the royal website unveils the open exhibition at Windsor. On X, young people respond enthusiastically. Finally, someone's bringing the royal family closer to us. One post, like thousands of times, reads, Catherine gets our generation, yours Order of the Garter. But negative articles soon surface. A tabloid screams, Catherine overprivileged, the truth behind the Garter decision. Another questions whether she's exploiting her fame to seize power. Catherine reads them but refuses to waver. She knows these stories aren't random. They're the first volleys in Sir Reginald's covert war. Rain drizzles on Windsor's cobblestone paths, veiling the ancient castle in a delicate mist. 3 weeks have passed since Garter Day, but the turmoil within the royal family shows no sign of subsiding. Catherine sits in her Clarence House office, surrounded by stacks of documents on the Order of the Garter's history, handwritten notes for the upcoming exhibition, and a cold cup of Earl Grey tea. The desk lamp's glow highlights her deep blue eyes, now tinged with fatigue, but unwavering in resolve. The media remains relentless. Tabloids churn out half-truths, from claims she manipulated the Duke of Kent to whispers that she's modernizing the Order for personal gain. Each word is a pinprick, but Catherine has learned to keep them from drawing blood. That afternoon, another letter from the Duke of Kent arrives. Not a simple handwritten note like before, but a thick envelope carefully sealed with the royal crest. Catherine opens it in the green study at Kensington Palace, the same room where she received his fateful proposal. Inside is an aged parchment, its black ink script, elegant yet slightly tremulous, as if the writer poured their heart into every word. The opening line stops her cold. To Edward, Duke of Kent, from Elizabeth R. Catherine sits, her hands trembling as she reads on. The letter was written in Queen Elizabeth II's final days, mere months before her passing. Her tone, though frail, carries the sharpness and vision of a monarch who led the royal family for nearly 7 decades. Dear Edward, when you read these words, I fear I will no longer be here to see the future of the royal family we've both safeguarded. But I write this with unwavering faith in what may come. Catherine, Princess of Wales, is an extraordinary woman. She has the heart of a leader and the sincerity today's public craves. I've watched her through trials and pressures, and I believe she can bridge tradition and innovation. If the day comes when the royal family needs a new breath of life, I hope you'll consider entrusting her with a worthy role. The Order of the Garter, with all its grandeur, could be where she shines. I know this choice won't be easy, but I trust you as I always have. With all respect, Elizabeth R. Catherine reads the letter again and again, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She doesn't cry from sorrow, but from a feeling both painful and profound. The Queen, a woman she admired from afar, saw something in her, something she sometimes doubted herself. The letter is more than an endorsement. It's a torch illuminating the thorny path she treads. That evening, the Duke of Kent appears on national television, a rare move for a man who shuns the spotlight. In Clarence House's small sitting room, Catherine and William sit before the screen, hands clasped tightly. The Duke, in a simple gray suit, looks directly into the camera, his eyes sharp yet weary. I've heard the debates about my decision at Garter Day, he begins, his voice resonant, and I understand concerns about tradition. But let me be clear, choosing the Princess of Wales was not impulsive. It was inspired by someone we all revere, Queen Elizabeth II. He holds up a copy of the letter, reading its key passages aloud. When he finishes, he looks into the camera as if addressing every royal, every knight, and the public. Catherine is not just my choice. She is the Queen's hope for the royal family's future. I ask us all to support her not for glory but for duty. The reaction on X is almost immediate. Social media erupts with thousands of posts praising Catherine and the Queen. The Queen chose the right person, one writes. Catherine is the future we need. Even accounts that once criticized her fall silent or shift to neutrality. The public ever devoted to the Queen finds reason to trust Catherine. A year later, Windsor Castle shines again under June's sun, but the atmosphere is transformed. The cobblestone paths to St. George's Chapel no longer carry the weight of whispers or wary glances. Instead, they buzz with laughter, lively chatter, and the eager footsteps of hundreds from students to ordinary families flocking to a special order of the Garter event open to the public for the first time. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stands on a small platform in the castle's courtyard, her blue silk dress fluttering in the breeze. Before her is a vibrant crowd, unbound by velvet robes or plumed hats. They are young people once convinced the royal family was a distant world now, listening intently as she speaks of the order's history, honor, and future. We're here not just to look back, Catherine's voice rings out clear and warm, but to build the future together. The Order of the Garter doesn't belong to one person, it belongs to all of us who believe in loyalty, duty, and progress. The crowd erupts in applause, cheers echoing off the ancient stone walls. This event is the culmination of reforms Catherine launched a year ago, defying headwinds from traditionalists and media. The open exhibition, held earlier than planned, drew thousands with a special area honoring Queen Elizabeth II's legacy, where her letter is displayed in a glass case, a reminder of her timeless vision. The educational program for students with interactive history lessons has been warmly embraced by schools across England, and Catherine's online Q&A session broke down the invisible wall between Windsor and the world. In Clarence House's waiting room before the event, Catherine stood alone, briefly holding a small photo of Queen Elizabeth II. Taken years ago at Balmoral, it captured a moment when Catherine, a nervous new bride, fumbled with royal protocols. The Queen had smiled a gentle but meaningful smile and said, "Catherine, just be yourself. That's your greatest strength." Those words in the letter the Duke of Kent revealed became the fire guiding her through turbulent months. She set the photo down, took a deep breath, and stepped into the courtyard ready to face the crowd. But this time, she didn't feel like she was entering an arena. She felt like she was coming home. William stood by her side throughout the event, his eyes gleaming with undisguised pride. He'd seen her struggle not just with traditionalists and media, but with her own doubts. "You did it, Kate," he whispered as they cut the ribbon for the exhibition. "The Queen would be so proud." Catherine smiled, squeezing his hand in the sunlight. "I didn't do this for her pride, Will. I did it because I believe in it. Because I believe in us." The traditionalists led by Sir Reginald have largely fallen silent in recent months. The Queen's letter, coupled with growing public support, weakened their stance. Some, like Lady Margaret, even publicly backed. Catherine, admitting her changes, didn't harm tradition, but revitalized it. Sir Reginald, though still resentful, lacks the influence for secret meetings. He knows for now Catherine has prevailed. The Duke of Kent, now retired from leading the order, attended the event. He stood quietly in a corner, watching Catherine with a subtle smile. He said nothing, but his slight nod as she passed was enough for her to know he never doubted his choice. As the event ended, Catherine stepped onto Windsor Castle's balcony, gazing at the crowd lingering in the courtyard. The sunset bathed the towers in gold, and St. George's bells rang, blending with children's laughter below. She stood alone, letting the moment sink in. She thought of her journey from anxious days at Clarence House, sleepless nights before Garter Day, to moments of self-doubt facing vicious headlines. She'd learned that true power lies not in velvet robes or glittering crowns, but in resilience, faith, and the ability to rise after every fall. Catherine closed her eyes, breathing deeply. The breeze carried the scent of roses from the garden. She opened her eyes, her gaze steadier than ever. Whatever challenges the future held, she was ready. She was not just the Princess of Wales, not just the Order's leader. She was Catherine, a woman who'd found her own strength and would keep walking no matter the winds against her.